Morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on when you're watching this. Karibu sana to another episode of our podcast. We're really happy to have you here. The last time we were here, we started a discussion and we didn't end it properly. The discussion on one man, one shilling, one vote.
The main resolution of the
Yes,
Limuru 3,
Limuru
actually.
3,
Yeah.
tying into Kenyan politics.
Yeah.
And, we forgot to discuss really what does this mean? What does one man, one vote, one shilling mean? Because I know a lot of people don't understand what this phrase means, and it's been out there for the last couple of days. Depending on when you're watching this, it's been out there with it garnering support from even the deputy president Kashagwa and his allies, his buddies. So, for context, one man, one vote is the idea that development should follow people. So if people are,
Many.
there are many in a particular area, then development should follow those people, like in terms of the numbers, right?
Yeah.
And going back to referencing the video we did, Kitambo, or our last video, when Tomboya brought that sessional paper of 1965 that brought about economic discrimination, they said, there are areas of high potential in terms of development in Kenya, and there are areas of low potential for development.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the areas for low potential were sana arid and semi-arid areas, or arid and semi-arid counties. Back then there were provinces.
Yeah.
And so it led to the development in terms of roads, infrastructure, education, healthcare, really being concentrated into some hotspots. And it's true even now. There are certain parts of Kenya that are more developed than others.
Yeah.
But when the new constitution came in, we said, yes, development should follow people because, they need more resources. But at the same time, because of the history of our country, there are areas that are already, pretty much developed, not to the standard that we want, but the areas that are pretty much developed. And so the areas that are not, like the northern part of our country.
Actually, I think it's also a common misconception that it's just the north of our country. Even
It's not,
right?
but that's what everyone thinks about when you
when
say
we think of
when you think about places like
lack of
Turkana,
development and
West
things like
Pokot,
sure.
and places like that.
Sure.
But even places like Baringo,
Yeah.
and a lot of there's so many Kenyans that live in rural areas, and
More Kenyans live in rural areas
exactly, than
in
urban areas.
yeah.
Exactly. And a couple of years ago, when I looked at the stats, it was saying that more than half of our population, back in 2019, the
Yeah.
stats were saying more than half of our population live below the poverty line. So there's the greater majority of Kenyans are living in rural areas,
Yes.
and
Are
a
living
big chunk
below the poverty line.
line, and a
Yeah.
big chunk of where these people are staying, a big chunk of Kenya as a whole is not developed.
Yes.
But there are areas that are more developed than others. So the new constitution was like, let's develop the places that have been ignored, or rather, they were economically discriminated throughout the years, especially since that sessional paper by Tom Boyer. So over the years, we've seen counties, especially less developed counties, arid and semi-arid counties, getting a lot of money from the shareable revenue that counties get every year. Out of the national budget, there's a shareable revenue that goes to the counties. And the counties like Kinaturkana, Wajir, Marsabit, they get a lot of money compared to
what they were getting previously.
Exactly. And compared to even other parts of Kenya. So now, one man, one shilling, one vote, that is being brought back to life by the Limuru 3 guys, is the sentiment that why should a constituency that has a lot of people per square kilometer or whatever receive the same amount of resources in terms of money as another constituency that has less people. And the example that Rigathi Gachagua gave was, why should a constituency like Ruiru that has 800k residents, I don't know how true that is, or how accurate it is rather, get the same amount of CDF as a constituency with 14k people. You get?
Yeah.
And the senator for, what's it called, Tana River.
According to the 2019 census, Ruiru has about 490,120 people. So if we are going to be rounding off, maybe let's say 500,000 or
since that time.
Yeah.
Maybe 6. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it has gotten to 8. I don't know.
I don't think it can double within
10 years.
No, 2019 is not
2019.
10 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So maybe 600.
Maybe 600. Yeah.
If it has gone so much, 650, hitting 7. But yeah, so why should a county like that, a constituency like that, get the same amount of money as a smaller constituency in terms of the number of people there?
Inside, yeah, sure.
So the senator for Athi River calls a press conference and he's so super pissed.
The senator for Transoya. I mean, for Tana River.
Tana River.
Yeah.
Not Athi River, Tana River.
Yeah.
He calls a press conference and he's super pissed at what the deputy president had said. He's pro-government, right? And he was saying, we cannot go back to 1965 policies.
Yes.
Which is now what one man, one vote, one shilling is all about. Let the money follow the people in terms of the numbers. And I think, personally, they have a point. The Limuru 3 guys have a point, and the constitution also has a point. Because, as I said, looking at the history of our country, places like the northern part of Kenya have been discriminated economically for a long time. And everyone knows, even people outside of Kenya, they know that place is not really developed. Even right now, going to Turkana or Marsabit or Wajir is a hassle. The roads are super bad. Like the sections of the road that it's like a really short distance, but it takes you like 3 hours to cover. Yeah, so guys who live up there or have relatives up there and they travel frequently, they say it takes about 12-15 hours to get to Turkana if you start the journey. So obviously we know that there's been discrimination against certain places of this country, and they deserve to be developed, at least to a certain level. The ideal situation is everywhere in the country, not just the northern part of Kenya, should be developed up to a certain level where I can decide I don't stay in Nairobi anymore. It's becoming too expensive. I'm going to stay in Turkana. And I just move there because the roads are okay. Public transport is working. The public goods that I should get as a citizen in northern Kenya are available to me, right? So there's lights, kuna maji, there's housing, and there's security. Because a big issue with
the northern region
part of Kenya is security. So if the government would fix those issues and make sure that the public goods that ought to be available to the people in the north are available, then this conversation about development really would not exist, or at least it would not exist in the form it does right now. Because if the northern part and arid and semi-arid counties in these regions in this country were somewhat developed to a certain level, then now would come back and say, okay, so all of us are now on the same playing field, the same level, but now us, we are more. So can we get more resources? That would make sense. But at the same time, I think the issue that we're struggling with as a country in general is just corruption. Because the northern part of Kenya has been receiving a lot of money since the new constitution in 2010. And there are all these stories of corruption and graft in those county governments. And it explains how the development is not up to par with the amount of money those guys have been receiving over the years. So I think the conversation on one man, one shilling, one vote, both sides have a point, but we have to look at where we are at now. Those guys need our help. Everyone pays taxes, but they are more disadvantaged than us. So I think they deserve more resources. But the problem is they do deserve more resources because of their state, but the people there, the leaders there, are not doing
their
them
job
justice. They're not doing them
Yeah, they're
justice.
also not doing their jobs properly.
Yeah, they aren't.
Yeah,
So
you know, one of the problems with one of the justifications, let me say, of the one man, one shilling, one vote is that it's very difficult to be able to ensure equal outcomes.
yeah,
You understand?
yeah,
Equal outcome is also something that I'm not very in support of. I'm more in support of equal opportunity.
yeah,
Of course, for you to be able to say that you want to have equal opportunity, you have to look at the outcomes.
yeah. Obviously,
But if you set the goal as equal outcome, as in like, okay, now all counties will be like Nairobi,
yeah. It's not possible.
it's not possible.
Yeah, it's not feasible actually.
Yeah, it's not, and I don't think it's something that we would even want, because we also want to have some diversity and some difference. Like when
Yeah.
I go to the coast, I want it to feel a little bit different from Nairobi.
Yeah,
Otherwise, if I went to the coast and it just felt like Nairobi, I feel like that the
the vibe.
the vibe of the coast.
Yeah. What's that? What's that on the screen? That black spot?
There's something on the screen.
There's something on the camera.
Oh, it's a fly. Oh, sorry, guys.
Why between my interview you're passing around? I hate you!
Anyway, go on. Sorry.
I was saying, of course, you have to look at outcomes sometimes. If you set the goal as having equal outcomes, that's also a bad goal. But you know, I also understand the idea that, hey, even for these places to grow, they do need money.
Yeah.
And because they need money, we can't just say that, oh, because you're small, you are a constituency of 14,000 people. You know, the problem is that most of these constituencies in, let's say, the northern region of Kenya, yes, they are constituencies of 14,000 people, but they are very big.
Yeah.
Like compared to
the landmass.
yeah,
is
the
big.
landmass is
Yeah.
quite big. You understand?
Yeah.
So they need hospitals, man. You
Yeah.
understand?
Obviously. Yeah.
They need hospitals to be able, because the hospital is so far away from where they live.
Where they are staying.
You know, here in Nairobi and maybe in Kiambu and maybe Central Region, Machakos, whatever.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say Kajiado, by the way, because
Yeah,
Kajiado when you go uko ndani kabisa, it's
actually,
almost
you know, Kajiado, we are like Rongai,
Ngong.
and then if you leave that part of
Kajiado.
Kajiado, before you get to the next significant town,
Yeah.
it is so far.
No, even Kajiado town itself is quite remote. Like
Yeah.
from here,
Even going to Isinya
Hey,
and
yeah,
those
yeah,
places
yeah,
are
yeah.
really far away.
they're really far
and
away.
and even accessing them is not really easy,
Yeah.
especially if you're using going to Isinya is not easy, especially if you're going through Kiserian, that road.
Yes.
It's not easy, but
It's
using
not.
the other route, yeah, kwenda Namanga, it's easier
Sure.
because the road is, well done.
Yeah.
But yeah, so even Kajiado we have not developed as
Yeah,
much
I've not developed as well, and so it's like, well,
holistically as a county. Some parts are slightly more
developed.
developed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's because of the proximity to Nairobi.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
because they have just developed also organically, like,
Yeah.
you know. Okay, they have developed organically because of their proximity to Nairobi.
Yeah.
You can say that. And Isinya has grown also because of its proximity to Namanga.
Yeah.
Or it's on the road,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, so, you know,
From Isinya, I think you can go to Namanga.
You
Yeah.
can.
It's the same road.
it's the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, my point is that the only way we can be able to talk about this issue is if we both sides that issue, you know. And I know that's not a very good answer. It's not a very good way to make things, because people want conclusions.
Yeah, conclusive results or
conclusive answers, results,
conversations,
and
yeah.
conversations.
yeah.
But it's a very difficult situation because we want these places to be developed.
Yeah.
But what does development mean? Does development mean that they have to reach to the point of Nairobi first,
no.
or the level of Eldoret or Mombasa?
I think development in our case is good roads.
Well, Nairobi doesn't have those good roads.
Yeah,
some
but
places.
development as a definition for our country
Sure.
would be good roads,
Yeah.
public services like public hospitals and even dispensaries. It might not be easy to have like really big hospitals everywhere, but dispensaries, lighting, electricity, a good supply chain. You get, and security. That's what I think every Kenyan wants, and that's what we are thinking of right now as development, because we're still a third world country and we're still struggling with a lot of corruption, and we're still struggling with third world problems. But if we could be able to accomplish that, that's like the basic level of development. Once we clear that, which we're so far from doing, then we'll obviously have a different conversation of what development means for us. You get? Yeah.
But it's a very broad topic, and we definitely can't finish it within just this one podcast.
We can't exhaust it.
But that's just what we're thinking about.
Yeah. So moving on.
So Haiti.
Yep.
Haiti is a very interesting country. It's a very special country also, because it's one of the first countries in the Western Hemisphere to abolish slavery.
Yeah.
It's the second country to declare being a republic. It's a very significant country.
In the West?
Yeah, in the West. In the Western Hemisphere, like in the Americas.
In the Americas. It was the second.
It was the second.
Second after America.
Second after America.
Crazy.
Yeah, and that's actually a very big achievement.
The land of slaves. It was full of slaves back then.
It was full of slaves.
Yeah.
And some immigrants from places like Poland and things like that. France, obviously. Yeah. It's two islands. It's one island which has two countries.
Two countries, yeah. It's
two
one
countries,
island with two
and
countries.
they were colonized by two different European kingdoms or powers. Haiti was colonized by the French. And DR, that is the Dominican Republic, was colonized by the Spanish. The way those two countries are run, or the histories of those two countries, are quite different. Part of the problems that Haiti faced when it was coming up, ni foreign debt. Like the French wanted the Haitians to continue paying them reparations. You can imagine.
I see.
Because they wanted independence. It's kind of like, the way Germany was told to pay reparations to countries like Poland for declaring World War II and destroying Polish cities, things like that.
Yeah.
And also the French were also asked to pay I think it was the Germans for the Franco-Prussian War. So Haiti they were threatened they were going to be blockaded, because it's an island country.
Yeah.
They were threatened it's going to be blockaded, and they're not going to be able to do any trade, nothing, until they pay certain amounts to the French government every single year. So they were set up to
colonizers.
They were set up to fail in a way from the very beginning. And then later on, there's foreign intervention. America invaded Haiti in the early 1900s, if I'm not wrong. And then dictators like Francois Duvalier and his son.
For 29 years.
Almost 30 years, 3 decades. That's a long time.
That's a long time.
Almost as long as, but obviously his is more. Museveni, yeah. He's been in power since 1986. That is 40 years.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's actually 40 years. 86 to now is 40 years.
No.
Add 4 years. If you add 4, no, it's 30.
38.
If you add 4 to
Can
86,
people who
it's
are born
90. 90 to 20 is 30. That's 30. It's 30. It's 30 flat.
My friend, 38.
But you've said 86 to 24.
2024, yeah.
86.
Somebody who was born in 1986 is how old this year?
30.
38.
Look,
my friend.
look. From
Bro, people are getting old.
Oh yeah, it's 38.
I was seeing
It's 38. Yeah, you're right.
I was seeing another video.
No, let me just confirm.
I was seeing another video, and this guy was like, he was talking about something like 1970s. That guy was like,
yeah, it's 38
oh,
years.
50 years ago. No,
Guys born
in the 70s or something. That's like 50 years ago. And this guy was like, no, that's 40 years ago. That's like 30
50
years
it's
ago.
50.
Yes,
It's 50 years.
but this guy, because he's used to, like, if I'm thinking 50 years ago, it's the 60s or 50s even.
Yeah. Because I just think we're really bad at math.
Yeah.
In general.
These days, time inaenda mbio sana.
Yeah, time flies.
Time is flying.
But yeah, so
Anyways, I was saying,
Yeah.
so there's foreign intervention
Mhm.
and
The dictatorships.
dictatorships
Yeah.
and all these things, and also civil strife, things like that.
Civil unrest and whatnot.
So all these things have been plaguing Haiti since their independence. And of course, we acknowledge that Haiti plays a very significant role in what it means to be African and self-determination,
Yeah.
being one of the first countries, I think the only country or one of the first countries to actually be born out of a slave rebellion.
Revolution. Yeah.
Revolution. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
a very significant thing. So, Haiti has always been a country that has faced a lot of things. And so this time, one of the problems that they're facing is the gang problem there.
Yeah. It's like 200, over 200 gangs there.
Yeah, there's more than 200 gangs over there.
Yeah. Over
And
200 gangs.
And these gangs are trying to control the capital city
Yeah, they're
and
trying to
many parts of the
consolidate
country.
power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a very bad thing because
And those guys, the gangs, a lot of people might not know, but those gangs are armed. Like
yes,
they're armed to the teeth. Those guys are seriously armed, and they're basically like many terrorists.
one of the things that people are keep forgetting
Terrorists.
is that Haiti is actually very close to the US.
Yeah, it is.
It's
It
actually
is.
very
It's
close to
yeah.
Florida.
Yeah, it is.
It's very close to, and the US, they produce a lot of guns.
Yeah,
So some of those guns are coming from
the US,
the US.
obviously.
Yes, so most of those guns, if maybe, in fact, maybe most, if not all,
All of them.
are coming from the US. So these
Yeah.
people are heavily armed. And one of the concerns with us as Kenyans or the Kenyan government sending our troops there is that, hey, these people have seen things that our people have not seen, especially the police.
Yeah, because
Maybe not the Kenya Defense Forces.
They're sending administration police.
Administration police.
Yes.
Administration police are the police who stay at banks, things like that,
I
or
think so,
or
yeah.
embassies,
Yeah.
things like
But
that.
they do have some paramilitary training.
Of course,
but Sasa,
of course they do. They have to have some
you have
training.
to think about their life experiences as a police force in terms of administration police.
Of course, we're not trying
Those
to
guys,
diminish
yeah,
our
exactly,
police.
exactly.
We think
but
our
we're,
police.
we're looking at the greater picture.
Yeah.
Our police officers are used to maandamano, stones, people wearing sufurias on their heads, and so on and so forth. And a few tear gas will disperse them. These guys,
Hardened
they're
criminals.
hardened criminals. They have guns. The other day,
And the thing is,
Mm,
most of these people, most of these gang members
exactly,
have also
yeah.
received police training or
Yes.
military
They
training.
were part of the former disbanded army
Yeah.
of Haiti.
Yeah.
So those guys they're super trained. They have a lot of guns and
Yes.
ammunition and whatnot, and they have money because from what I've heard of what I've read,
Yes.
is the gangs were really being supported by politicians
Yes.
or political sects. So a politician coming to power, and they would be sponsoring certain gangs to go and control certain areas of the country on their behalf. So a kind of their own paramilitary.
Yes.
And so that increased the prevalence of the gangs, and they started growing. Yeah, so the politicians all are somewhat to blame because they were sponsoring these guys
Yeah.
while there was still a government. Obviously, right now there is no legitimate government in Haiti. There's a transitional council.
But it's not even recognized by the gangs, right? Is it?
Well, so what happened was Ariel Henry or Henry,
Ariel Henry.
however you call him, was the interim prime minister after the president was assassinated.
Jovenel Moise.
Exactly.
Yes.
So after he was assassinated, he became the leader who was to transition the country to an elected government.
Yes.
But the gangs
He also kept on
delaying it.
elections, things like
Exactly. And
that.
so those guys were getting pissed,
Yeah.
and it started getting out of hand.
But in a way, can I can you even blame him for delaying those elections? Of course, maybe he had his own sinister plans,
we don't know why he did that.
but the security situation in the country was very bad. I feel like even if
Yes.
they did have elections, they wouldn't have been seen as credible, or there would have still been legitimacy problems.
Okay. From the research I've done, I'm seeing a really big problem with the entire Haiti situation internally, without even us being involved. The gangs there
Yeah.
have consolidated, according to reports, 80% of Port-au-Prince, the capital of the city. So they are controlling around 80% or even more of the city, of the capital, right? That's a lot of power. And this guy who's been going around, what's his name? The guy who's really popular as the leader of those gangs. Barbecue.
Cherizier.
Something Cherizier, whatever his other name is. So what I read was he's the leader of the G9 coalition. It's a coalition of gangs. So they came together and now they said, let's get together, be structured and, organized, because now we're basically in war, right? In war. And there's another big coalition of gangs called the GPEP. That's led by another guy called T.I. Gabriel or something.
What does the G stand for? Gangster?
I don't know. So the G9 and the GPEP made a pact, like a truce of some sort in September last year, because of the stories of this multinational force that is being led by Kenya coming to Haiti. So they were like, let's band together, let's have a truce for this part of time, because these guys, they want to bring foreigners into our country to try and solve our problems, and that's what they are against. But this is what I'm seeing there's a big problem with. These guys, they control the airport, they control the large part, like both the two coalition gangs combined, they control a majority of the entire capital. The other day they released around 4,000 prisoners. They broke into prison and broke out 4,000 prisoners, and there were reports that those guys were so coordinated, they were even using drones that day to prison break those guys. Like, those guys are seriously trained, and they have serious equipment.
The the situation of the prisoners there was also very dismal. It was like so bad.
Yeah.
They were. I think there was even reports of maybe cannibalism.
Really?
Like that. Yeah.
In the prisons?
Yeah, because they're not receiving any food because the government. There's no government. And the cases.
So who was holding them in prison?
And I don't even know.
Yeah, if there's no government
and the cases, there's somebody who's had a case in court since like 2010 to 09 that have never been had.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But anyway,
but
I mean, there's definitely
We're
corruption.
not
Not trying to rationalize, but
there's
definitely
corruption.
Yeah,
there.
there was definitely corruption in the country, obviously. But now my problem is when Ariel Henry stepped down after he came to Kenya, they signed that bilateral agreement, a reciprocal agreement, and then he left trying to go back, and they told him, barbecue those guys. They told him, if you come back. Sorry, actually, you can't even come back. Don't even come back. Yeah. So
he resigned. He wasn't even in the country.
Exactly. So this is my issue. There was transitional council set up, right?
Yeah.
With 7 voting members and 2 non-voting members. But when those guys were being sworn in, they were to do it in the palace. But the gangs, kina barbecue, they were shooting up the place, so they couldn't go there. So they went and did it in the office of the prime minister. That's where they were sworn in. But at the same time, barbecue was saying, even with you guys being sworn in or not sworn in, we want to be involved in the process of putting up the new government. You see, so that is the big problem. Those guys have had a taste of power and they don't want to let it go. That's what I'm seeing. Because if this is what you wanted, they wanted Ariel Henry to step down. He has. They wanted a team of their own people to bring about an election that has been put in place. That 9-member council has been put in place, but still they have not stepped down or even tried to lay down their guns or whatever. You see, so
Ceasefire, things
yeah,
like
so that's what I'm seeing. There's a big problem even now,
Internally.
and now with adding the complication of this peacekeeping force or whatever, there are rumors that we are going to disarm them. I don't know how effective we're going to be, because it's, I don't know. The people are extremely optimistic. There are people on the other side who are not very optimistic, because
I'm not very
it's-
optimistic, I have to say.
neither am I, because it's not a really rosy picture. It's not a place we want our police to go. I think it would be better if we sent our army, but now
But that's now a different problem, because
yeah,
it's like, okay, it's not a situation of the army, right? It's very difficult to rationalize sending. I think that's part of the problem,
Yeah.
It's very difficult to rationalize sending our own army to Haiti.
not all of them. So you
Of
band
course,
together,
of
like
course,
the way
of course.
there's so many
Of course,
countries
we're not
now.
saying all
Yeah,
of them,
yeah.
right? But you
Like
understand, it's the
like a
same
group
way.
of
It's the same way, even just our neighbors, DR Congo, if we want to go there as Kenya, we have to also say that, okay, we're not just going there as Kenya, we're going there as the East Africa,
ESC,
EARCF, yeah?
yeah.
We can't just say that we are going there as Kenya and we're deploying our military in a foreign country.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to rationalize something like that.
No, but you see, this is a UN mission. It's not ours.
Yeah.
You get? We are just the ones who volunteered to lead the delegation of countries and those guys who are willing to donate troops.
Actually,
or
I feel like
officers.
maybe we have jumped the gun a little bit, because we can talk about the thing, the proposal to send our troops,
the police
the
officers.
Kenya police
Yeah.
to Haiti was actually rejected by the High Court.
Yeah,
Right?
Ekuro Court, the leader of the Third Way Alliance Party, he went to court, and the court ruled that it's not the process in which they wanted to send the cops was unconstitutional.
Yeah, it
or
was
illegal.
it was almost like it was as if like
Yeah.
a presidential decree.
Yeah, and
And
it's
that's not how we do
because
things in this country.
actually there was no reciprocal agreement between Kenya and Haiti
Yeah.
at the time. So that's actually why
Ariel Henry
he came
to
to Kenya to sign that reciprocal
And
agreement.
you could say that it was kind of invalid because he wasn't even a legitimate leader.
Yeah, he wasn't a legitimate leader in terms of democratically elected, but at the same time, according to Ekuro Court, who is a seasoned lawyer and one of the framers of our constitution, he said, according to the Haitian constitution,
Yeah.
only the president has the power to to sign that document.
Yeah.
So he wasn't the president at the time.
Yes.
He was the prime minister, interim prime minister,
Yeah.
and he signed it. And then afterwards, he resigned. So there's still questions. Was it a legitimate document? Does it have legitimacy? Because he wasn't the president. And according to their constitution, only the president can
Be able to sign such a document.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why, and the way we've really, it's been seen that we're really focused on
Sending
on going. Obviously, there's the question of there's the point on the money that is being offered to the guys who are going out.
Yeah.
It's around $200 million. Which
$200
is
million.
Yes.
Okay.
To the guys who will be, going out. The countries are there's a bunch of countries. There's Chile, Chad,
Chile
there's
is in
Mauritius,
South America.
Yeah, there's Mauritius, Nigeria. There's a bunch of countries that have
agreed to help us.
Yeah, they've confirmed that they're also sending their troops. But I don't know. It's we'll see what's going to happen, because Kenya said we're sending the first. I think the guys who are it's supposed to be about 200 police officers. So
what we were talking about the Kenya Defense Forces and the National Police Service.
Yeah.
The thing is that according to our new constitution, our police is not supposed to be a force. It's a service.
Yeah, they're a service.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the reason why it's. I was saying that it's difficult to rationalize sending the Kenya Defense Forces there,
Yeah.
or any defense forces or military of any country there.
Yeah.
Right? It's because what they're going to do is to maintain law and order. Maintaining law and order is
Or
not
stabilize the situation that's there.
yeah,
Yeah.
but maintaining law and order is not a function of the military.
Yeah, it
Right?
isn't.
It's
It
not a
isn't. It
function of the
isn't. Yeah,
military.
it isn't.
Maintaining law and
But
order is
but in a
the function
situation
of the
but
police.
but in a situation where there's anarchy, then it is the military has to step in.
But you see, the military can also take over. Militaries, when they do that, they usually take over
Over
the
the
whole
government.
government. And when they take over
Yeah.
the government, they disband the police. You know that during coup d'états, police are disbanded. They're told go home.
Really?
Yeah, and the military takes over everything,
Okay.
including maintaining law and order.
Yeah, but we can't finish this conversation without talking about Haiti's blessings of natural resources.
Sure.
There's a report that came out a few months ago or years ago that they have found a pretty huge deposit. They found huge deposits of crude oil in Haiti. Bigger, the report was saying, bigger than Venezuela.
Really?
Yeah, that's what the report was saying. Natural gas and oil, especially oil, according to what the report said, what they have discovered is the oil reserves that have been found, according to the guys who went and tested it out and surveyed, they are estimating it's a lot more than Venezuela's oil reserves, which we know is a lot. Yet, so we obviously cannot finish this conversation without touching on why are these guys
to claim that?
yeah. Why are these guys? Because we know the history of America. We know US's history. We know what what they are like.
America.
Yeah. So there's obviously that conversation. People are worried. They
Time
have
for some freedom and democracy.
yeah.
Maybe time to liberate them from their.
Yeah, from the situation.
From the
America
situation.
is good at doing that, especially when there's oil. So we'll see what's gonna happen. But
America.
we have to also mention that those guys are actually super rich, and they haven't exploited yet the oil reserves and the natural gas. They also have a lot of gold and copper.
Okay.
So those guys are really well endowed with natural resources.
There's something,
and you'd
these
wonder,
countries that
wait.
have,
You'd wonder what the reciprocity would be, because you signed a reciprocal agreement.
yeah,
So we are giving you help. What are you giving us?
yeah.
That's what reciprocity means.
Oh yeah, the treaty that they actually signed.
Yeah,
like,
it's a reciprocal agreement. So if we are helping you with troops, what are you helping us
what's
with?
with?
We are not going there for vibes. Obviously, there's money that we are getting to support the troops that are going there. But besides that, that is not part of the reciprocity. That is just US funding the mission.
We've not even talked about how it's so absurd for Kenya to send police there, and yet we have people dying in the northern region of Kenya.
Yeah, we obviously don't have enough police officers.
Yeah, we don't even have enough
don't have
police
enough.
officers per given population,
Yeah,
right?
for our population, for the number of people we have in Kenya, we don't have.
There's a certain quota that the United Nations has.
It does, yeah.
So
Even for doctors and whatnot. Even when the doctors were striking, they said, we are way below the recommended number of doctors to.
by given people.
Yeah, even and it's the same for police officers. We don't have enough.
We don't have enough.
Yeah,
Like kwanza ushago mzee. I feel like for you to
Ushago
even
is the
be-
Wild West, by
yeah,
the
for you
way.
to once you are out of Nairobi and Rongai and
The environment, Nairobi and its environs.
Nairobi and its environs,
Yeah.
bro. Like
Security is really bad.
security is really bad. We usually think that at Marsabit, Wajir,
Yeah,
Lamu are the places that are experiencing a lot of
Yeah.
insecurity. But me, I would say just outside Nairobi.
even last year there was a report that was coming out that the
In-
gangs in Nakuru have started resurfacing.
Yeah.
Which
And actually,
is
according to a
serious.
report, I think it was a financial report,
Yeah,
For 2022. Wait, was it? I think it was 2023, 2022, or 2023.
Mm-hmm.
It says that crime rose by 19%
Oh,
last year,
really?
all over the country, and they were
Wow, that's
attributing it
mad.
to the the rising cost of living.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
Obviously,
so
so people are turning to
to
crime.
crime, yeah,
Yeah.
and so it's like outside Nairobi and its environs,
Mm.
it's the Wild West. You're right in calling it like that. It's the Wild West, and we need more police. Of course, the problem with our police sometimes can be that they act with impunity sometimes, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
But police from everywhere act with impunity, even in America itself,
Yeah.
right? There's George Floyd and things like that. But still,
But
they
for
are a
them, it's more of
very
racism.
fundamental
Yeah.
part
Yeah.
of the society.
Society
Yeah,
and law and order.
and law and order.
Exactly.
If there are no police, there'd be anarchy,
Yeah.
just like
Obviously.
there is in Haiti.
Yeah. But obviously, we'll pray for the Haiti Maze. Those
And even
guys
our troops
and our troops
that
who
are
are going
going,
there,
our not troops, our
our
police
police officers
officers that are going
and the
there.
guys who are accompanying them, the other countries.
Yeah,
We hope it does not turn out badly, but
yeah,
yeah, the indicators are not good. But we'll pray for them.
yeah. The
Yeah,
things,
because those people they have families and
the thing is, you have to look at the statistics also. It's like, well, most of the countries that have taken their people there
Mm.
have not been so successful. But there's hope. There's
Yeah.
hope. Like in El Salvador, it was one of the most dangerous countries in the world, and
In the world or
in the
in the
world,
Americas.
in the world,
Mm.
like the homicide rates were above the roof. And then they came the new president. He's called Bukele, and he's been able to turn the whole country around. The homicide just plunged.
Yeah.
It plunged.
Haiti really need a good leader. Hopefully the council that is put there, they have an expiration date next year, February.
Mm.
So by that time, they should have at least sworn in a new president or held elections. So that's what they're hoping. So I think even as we're going there to try and help facilitate that process, so that by February 2020, wait, no, it's 2 years from now. So by February 2026, they should have a sitting president, democratically elected.
Yeah.
But we'll see. The gangs, I don't think they'll let go of the power. They've had a bit of taste of power, and as you rightly put it, power corrupts.
Power corrupts.
Yeah.
And actually, I wanted to. It's just something quick that I was telling you
Yeah.
before we started this podcast.
As we close,
It's a
yeah.
quote by Frederick Douglass that I really like, and it's
Yeah.
about letting the people stand on their own two legs.
Yeah.
And he said that everybody has asked the question, what shall we do with the Negro? I have had but one answer from the very beginning. Do nothing with us. Your doing with us has already played the mischief with us. Do nothing with us. If the apples will not remain on the tree of their own strength, if they are worm eaten at the core, if they are early ripe and disposed to fall, let them fall. I am not for tying or fastening them on the tree in any way, except by nature's plan. And if they will not stay there, let them fall. And if the Negro cannot stand on his own legs, let him fall also. All I ask is give him a chance to stand on his own legs. Let him alone.
And I think that's a really nice place to close the show.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys next time. Toodles.
Cheers.